Hello and welcome to the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. Rachael is a speaker, inspirational author, and an overcomer. As Rachael is walking through her own journey of grief, she's challenging others to persevere and overcome their own circumstances. Find out more at rachaelflick.com. Here now is your host, Rachael Flick.
Hi friend, welcome back to this week's episode of the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. Today I'm bringing you part 2 of my interview with Janet Johnson. She wrote a book on how to survive while grieving during the holidays and several other books on supporting people in loss, including how to help children grieve. Janet is a pastor, spiritual formation mentor, author, writer, and speaker whose passion is to draw others closer to God in life situations. She holds a Master's of Social Work, a Master's of Divinity, and is an associate member of the Order of St. Luke Healing Ministry, and has completed the Academy of Spiritual Formation and the Pastors of Excellence program. She frequently teaches on grief and joy, and also writes regularly for a Christian magazine. She and her husband Richard live in North Carolina and have 4 grown children and several grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Janet, welcome back to the Hopecast.
Thank you. It's so good to be back with you again.
Yes, on our last episode, we were talking through some of your story and getting into the power of reframing our loss, especially during the season of the holidays. And you were kind of beginning to elaborate on some of those tools. So what's coming to your mind right now when you feel like if they get this, I want to make sure that this goes home with them?
I think it's important for everybody to realize that everybody grieves differently, and there's no one way that is the right way. People try to tell us that it's okay to just continue our lives as normal and to keep going. And I think it's important to realize that when we do that, we're just kind of stuffing things, and we're not actually truly being true to ourselves and true to how God has created us. He gave us the gift of grief when we lose somebody, and I consider grief a gift. And
Tell me why.
simply because what would we do if we lost someone and we were not able to have any way to process that? I think in so many ways, God has given us the gift of allowing us to feel hope, and part of that is the grieving process, and to learn through grief that there is joy and that God is present with us.
It's so good. I've honestly never considered, like, what would life look like if we were unable to grieve, and how flat and half-hearted our relationships would be if we just kind of broke ties and walked away.
Right.
And how grief is very honoring to the love that we've experienced. And I've heard people say that we grieve in proportion to our love, but
Exactly.
it's never occurred to me before about how expansive love and grief are together. That's a really beautiful thought.
Thank you. I mean, that's just how I see it. God gives us so many gifts in this world, and joy is a gift, as is grief and hope and peace. I mean, all of those are gifts that we experience when we're connected with the Lord. And there's such a difference between, I think, people who grieve with no hope and people who grieve with hope. And it's such a big difference. And you see it in how they react. And yeah, I mean, I've done funerals for people who really didn't have a solid connection with the Lord. And it made such a difference in how they processed that grief and the journey of grief that they took and the anger that they had. Yeah. And
Such despair.
exactly. And I mean, anger is a part of grief. It's one of the stages of grief. And so, you know, we do get angry, but people can get stuck in being angry at the person who died, at God, at another person who might have been with them or caused it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they just get stuck with it.
That's good. That's good. So you said that nobody grieves alike. And so during the holidays, that can put our grief in conflict with each other, right? Where
Hmm.
it's like, well, I want to do the thing that we've always done. And someone says, well, I absolutely can't do that and I can't
Right.
go. And then that causes, a stress in the family when, someone opts out of the Christmas Eve service, right? That you always went together as a
Right.
family. And so now you have this tension and kind of judgment from one side, one person to the other on what their grieving looks like. So, how do you help people just give space for and acknowledge the reality that that's going to look different, especially when it comes to traditions and what we're used to, and how are we going to do that this year?
Hmm. I think it's important for the person who is grieving to set boundaries and to acknowledge and let the family know that there are certain things that they would like to continue with, but this year there are certain things that may need to change. For instance, if everybody always came to grandma's house, I keep using grandma, but if everybody always came to grandma and grandpa's house and grandpa passed away and grandma just feels like she can't do that this year. She's just not up to it. And they say, well, we'll all bring something and, that kind of thing. But the point is, she's not up to it. And so she needs to be able to say, no, somebody else needs to do that this year. I will come, but I can't have all that added stress. I mean, let's face it, the holidays can be stressful for all of us. And so setting boundaries and just saying that, I can't do that. Or for instance, if you always went to the Christmas Eve service with your spouse, and your spouse is no longer there, and you feel like you just cannot bear to go alone, you can let the family know if that's it. I'm going to watch it on TV, but I will be with you, but I won't be physically with you. Or you could invite somebody else that is also alone to go with you, and the two of you sit there, knowing that you're both
Mm-hmm.
grieving.
Mm-hmm.
There's just different ways of doing that. One of the other things is, for instance, on, let's just say, Thanksgiving Day, if you have people that might end up being alone, older um, people who have lost a spouse, and they're alone, have them invite somebody else that's also alone. Go to a movie and
Mm.
don't even worry about
Change it up.
Thanksgiving dinner.
Chinese, go to a movie.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And you can celebrate that way. Thanksgiving, the holidays are what you choose to make them. And so, as we move through that, and I do believe the boundaries are so important. It's like being invited to a Christmas party that you always went to. And
Mm-hmm.
it's important to be able to, if you decide you're going to go with somebody else that has agreed with you. When I say I need to leave, you will
You're my
take.
exit
You're
strategy.
my exit,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
So, or drive yourself so that you can leave when you need to leave and you're not stuck there. But it's always best if you have someone that you can depend on that will back you up, that they
Mm-hmm.
need to leave or whatever. And so you don't have that stress of, oh, I've got to stay there for 2 hours. What if I start crying? What if and it's okay to
Mm-hmm.
cry, by the way. What if I
Mm-hmm.
start crying and get embarrassed or whatever it should happen to be? It's number one, it's okay to cry, but it's good to have an exit strategy, as you say. But it's also totally okay to just change things totally up and not go. I think in our world, we have now, since COVID, it's changed a little bit, but before, for a lot of people, every weekend you were going to something between
Right.
Thanksgiving and the New Year. And it gets to be a little bit much for the normal
Mm-hmm.
person, let alone somebody who is grieving and trying to figure out, how do I do these holidays this year? And so by saying I can do number one, number three, and number five, but I can't do number two and four. It's just too much. To be able to acknowledge that there are certain things that you're just not up to this year makes it a whole lot easier, because you retain control. And in grief, we've lost control. We've lost somebody. We've lost control of our lives, in a sense. So by setting boundaries, we're taking back some control. And I think that's important.
Yeah. And I would just encourage our listeners to have these conversations with either someone who is experienced in grief, like they've also lost, or a counselor or a mentor or
Hmm.
a spiritual formations person like yourself.
Hmm.
Because what I noticed was that we had a lot of unspoken family culture rules when my husband was killed. And so we'd never talked about the fact that we always did Thanksgiving together at,
Hmm.
this family member's house, or that we always did Christmas in this way after the service with a dinner and then the gifts. And that, you know what I mean? That
Right.
we had this regimented expectation. We didn't talk about it. We just all knew that that was the expectation.
Hmm.
And so when you come in with boundaries and you have conversations about this is what I can do and this is what I can't do, it can really shake that family system's mobile, right? Like
Hmm.
where it's like that person isn't playing their part and now I'm displaced. And so by taking the time apart, like don't start the conversation with your family members, start it with someone who is not emotionally invested in the outcome of your Thanksgiving dinner, right?
Hmm.
And talk through what are we going to do? And me deciding to opt out is basically going to throw a bomb into the family dynamic, and no
Right.
one's going to appreciate that,
Right.
right? And
Right.
so by talking with someone safe, you're going to have the tools that you need to actually hold that boundary when people are not happy with grandma because she's not hosting,
Right.
right? Even though
Exactly.
that's really what she needs. And it's good to honor her.
Hmm. And I think that the sooner, I mean, we're already in November, so these conversations need to take
Have the
place
conversation. Yeah.
now. Even for Christmas, it's important, because there's so many traditions around Christmas also. And so by letting people know ahead of time what you feel you can and cannot do, it allows them to think about it also. And maybe they get upset in the beginning, but given time, they can remember and think, yeah, it probably will be really stressful on grandma to have everybody. Maybe I could do it this year. And then maybe next year we could go back to grandma. But given time, people usually will reconsider. Not everybody, but hopefully they
Mm-hmm.
will. And it does become a time of honoring the remaining person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's good. One of the things that is such a key part of the holidays, I think, are our children. And
Yes.
I find them to be what's enjoyable, right? Like I'm not so much into the magic of Christmas, but my kids are. And it's
Mhm.
beautiful to watch them and to see them anticipate and dream and, get excited about pulling out those boxes of decorations. And that motivates me in ways
Right,
where I would be like, you know what, we're not doing a tree this year. Nope,
right.
I'm getting Chinese, right? But for my kids. So kids
Yes,
experience grief and loss as well. And you've
yes,
really done some work on that and even wrote a book about that. Tell us
yes.
more about how to support our kids in their grief.
Yes, along with Michelle Medlock Adams, we've written two books, Fly High, and they're both available on Amazon. One is for the Christian market, or the faith-based market. The other is for the general market, so it can go into schools and places like that. But it helps children understand their feelings and the emotions, like their anger, or
Mm,
just being totally confused or not being able to express things. So that book is on that. But I think it's important that we involve our children in all the decisions that we're making for Christmas, because they are feeling alone if they've lost a mom or a dad or a grandparent that they were close to. and that we focus on what is really important for the holidays, to ask children, what do they want to do this season? Do they want to continue to, of course, they're going to want to put up the tree. They're going to want to do the decorations because that is
Yeah.
Christmas, even though we don't feel like it. And I think one of the ways that we honor them, as you say, the magic is in watching the children, and
Mm-hmm.
they can bring us joy also.
They
Um,
do.
but we also need to answer the kids truthfully. When they ask questions, don't give them answers. We need to use concrete words. Like when we say somebody died or was killed, or his heart stopped and it won't start again, they understand those words. But if we say,
Mm.
well, they're just sleeping for a long time,
Mm-hmm. Or
it's
they went away with Jesus. Well, where'd they go? Where'd Jesus take them? Can he bring them
exactly
back?
right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. We have to use words that help children to understand what really happened. And it's also important, I think, to encourage playtime. Tell the kids it's okay to play, because they may
Mm-hmm.
see us being sad, but they may want to go outside and play. And it's perfectly okay to allow children to do that. And it's important, I think, to let children know that the holidays are going to be different. But if we're faith based, our holidays, they're not about really the Christmas tree or anything else. They're really about Jesus and the birth of Jesus. And that because of Jesus, you know, their mom or dad or grandpa are okay. They may not be with us, but they're okay. And so
Mm.
that's one of the questions that kids have. Well, what happens when somebody dies? Because they don't have that knowledge. Kids do not have the vocabulary to express how they're feeling. They
Mm-hmm.
don't have the words. As adults, we can say we feel sad, we're angry, we're this, we're that, but kids don't have that vocabulary. And so it'll come out in other ways. For instance, kids may start hitting other kids or kicking the dog, as they say, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And
Putting that somewhere else. Yeah.
they don't know why. They don't know why they feel like they have to be angry or the feelings that they're having. And they will come out in other ways. Younger kids will start wetting the bed again, or they may. It's just technically it's a release for them. Other kids will become very isolated. They don't want to come out of their rooms. They don't want to do anything. And so we need to recognize that these behaviors are normal for kids, and to just let them know that they're loved and they're not going to be alone. Kids have a fear if one parent dies that the other one is going to die. And so
Right.
that is a real fear for children. And to let them know that, there is a grandma or a grandpa or an aunt or an uncle or somebody, even if something happened, that they would never be alone. And because of God, they're never alone, but there is a physical person that is going to
Yeah.
be with them. The fear is a huge thing for kids.
The
Um,
twins have really needed me to talk through that. Right. Like,
uh-huh.
I try not to give them details to make them anxious, but to say, if I did die, which I probably will not, there is a plan in place that will immediately be activated to
Right.
care for you. And there's,
Exactly.
all of the documents are signed. There's the money in place. The people will come to you. You will not be alone. You'll be cared for
Right.
immediately.
Exactly. And they need to have that feeling of security.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very important. It's kind of interesting. Some traditions are important to kids too, and we don't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
The year after my brother died, I mean, I had stuffed everything, but I didn't feel like doing everything. And so we have a tradition. I didn't know it at that time, but we have a tradition of a Christmas quiche on Christmas
Oh,
morning. Okay.
okay. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't make it that year because I
Uh-oh.
didn't feel like it. And
Yeah.
our youngest, our daughter, was like, "Where's the quiche? It's a tradition, Mom. Where's the quiche?" And I mean, like, I blew it.
You broke Christmas.
And I didn't even know it.
Mm.
And so it's important to ask kids, what's important to you about this holiday? What's important to
Mm.
you about Christmas? So that you get it ahead of time. I know that she would have said, oh, our Christmas quiche, but I didn't ask because I didn't even think about it. So it's important to ask kids what is important to them about each holiday that they celebrate, you know. So, and I think that it's important to allow the children to do something that is special to them to honor their loved one that has passed. And this becomes more tangible, but kids are tangible. They experience things that way. So for instance, and most of these things, and some of them are in the book, they're not expensive. You can go out and get some flat rocks. Have fun. Go out with the kids, find some flat rocks. What? Let the kids wash them off. Splash in the water, wash them off, and let them dry. And then have them draw a design, or if they're old enough, write a word or a scripture passage. You know, this can be for any age, about something that reminds them of the person. For instance, if somebody always was laughing, they might want to write the
Mm.
word laughter on it. Or if somebody always wore a hat, they might picture a hat on the rock. And then someplace around the house, just put all the rocks in a place that is an honor to that person. And that way, the children have given a part of themselves to honor the loved one. And that can stay. They can go and look at that anytime they want to. It's just
Yeah,
a wonderful thing that they can do.
that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, and it doesn't cost any money.
Right,
And that's the kind of
right.
things have you could make a mobile, for instance, with a big heart and then a lot of little hearts. And if the child is, they can draw pictures on the hearts, or they could words on the hearts, construction paper, and string, and they can hang that in their room and have that as a memory of, just things like that that are easy to do, but that allow the child to be involved in. It helps them express their feelings, because along with all of this, you're having a discussion with them. Well, what
Mm-hmm.
word would you like to put on that heart? Well, what reminds you of grandpa? Or, what was really special? And on each one of the, 5 or 6 little hearts that you have hanging down, there's a different word. And just different things like that that help them process their grief, but also remember this, the sweet memories. That's what I call them.
Yeah,
What we
yeah.
want to do is encourage the sweet memories, because those
Mm.
sweet memories bring joy to our
Yeah,
hearts. And that's what we
I
want
love
to,
that.
try to help them remember.
Our family, this was not for no money. I love that your ideas are accessible to anyone at any
Hmm.
time. This last year, we decided to do a tree in honor of my husband.
Uh-huh.
And so we had his ornaments, right, that were already like ones that we had given him in his
Right.
life and ones that people had given us in honor of him. And we had a lot of law enforcement memorial, like,
Hmm.
concerns of police survivors sends you a Christmas ornament every year, things like that.
Right.
And I wouldn't have been ready for this the first couple years, but last year I'd had it in my mind. And so we decorated that tree, and it's separate from our other tree,
Hmm.
and the kids put things on it and they looked at it and we talked about the ornaments. And we say that daddy was our Superman, and so we have a
Right.
Superman ornament on there for him. And
Uh-huh.
so that has been a really beautiful way that we've tangibly combined our grief in the holidays.
Hmm.
And it's interesting because I find that grief can be kind of like humidity. It's in the air, you can feel it, but you can't grab it, you can't move it, you can't suck it out of the room.
Right.
And what has been so interesting in creating this tree is it was like it brought the humidity and it grabbed it and it made it concrete,
Hmm.
like what you're talking about with the rocks and the
Right.
mobile. That all of a sudden it wasn't just everywhere and anywhere in his empty chair and where's dad and his gifts should be under the tree. It was like we have a place for him that's
Right.
beautiful. that
Hmm.
represents him and that are things that we love, right? We didn't put things on there that we didn't love.
Right.
And so it was a way that brought us kind of a bittersweet joy
Hmm.
throughout that month of getting
Hmm.
to look at the tree and doing the work of creating it and having the conversation. So
Right.
I love that you gave us that opportunity to create an activity like that.
And I think that tree for you will become one of those sweet memories. It will
Mm,
become a tradition that that tree
mm-hmm.
goes up
I
every
think you're
year,
right.
you know. And it can be that you may add an ornament here and there or not. Either way is fine, you know.
Right.
But I think I made it's an ornament, but it's on in a clear glass, and I took pictures and downsized them and got little things like scrapbook things, like a fishing rod and a tent and those kind of things. And
Okay.
I put them in this, and it hangs actually all year long by our fireplace because it's just a memory of all the things that David loved. And
Wow.
but
That's a beautiful idea.
you can do that for Christmas and just from old photographs or whatever, we have a picture, and I gave each of the kids one, but each one was different because, like, our oldest son and our son that was killed, David, had a big wheel.
Okay.
They rode together all the time, and so there's a
Yeah.
picture of I downsized the picture of them on the big wheel, and it's on his in his ornament and different things like that. And you can buy those they're plastic, actually, they're not glass, they're
Mm-hmm.
plastic, but you can buy those for $1, like at a Hobby Lobby or someplace like
Yeah, and
that.
you can fill them with those things. Is that what you're
Exactly.
thinking?
Yes, and you fill them with
Wow.
those
I
things
love
and
that.
make an ornament out of that, and those instructions are in the book. But there's just so many ways that we can choose to remember our loved ones and include the children in all that we're doing. I think it's so important because otherwise they don't have a way to process that. And when we're talking about teenagers, they process completely differently also. They want to be with their friends.
Mm-hmm.
We have to give them that opportunity. If they want to go out and be with their friends, that's where they need to be because that's their peer group. And that's where they will talk to their friends more than they'll talk to an adult at that point, for the most part. Not always, but for the most part, they just need that space to be with their friends. And so, unless we see them doing something that we know is destructive, then we need to obviously talk with them about that. But for the most part, they just need to have time to be with their friends and be involved in the conversations. Like I said earlier, be the one to put the star on the top of the tree. Be the one
Mm-hmm.
if they drive, be the one that's going to take you to something, and then bring you home or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great.
You know,
Giving them a little bit of the responsibility in that to help them feel connected.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow. That's great. And not to be threatened or clingy when they want to be with their friends,
Right,
not to allow that to feel like rejection or, that they're disconnecting from us, which can be overtly painful, right? When we're
right.
already feeling loss.
Yeah,
And so just to have the people who support us so that we can allow them to get their needs met in the ways that are meaningful for them.
right. It's so
That's
important.
so good.
Every age group has different things that they need. But for the most part, with children, they need to know they're loved and that they're safe. And then as the kids get older, they need to know that you expect them to be responsible and to continue to honor their loved one. It's okay. I think it's okay to say, how would grandpa feel about that?
Mm-hmm.
you know, to remind them
Mm-hmm.
that they have a heritage that they're carrying on, and not to make them feel guilty, but to allow them to remember the sweetness of what their loved one would have wanted.
Mm. It's so good. Janet, this is just right on the nose. And maybe it's the Rudolph The red-nosed reindeer nose. Does that kind of make a holiday dad joke a little corny? That's right on the nose for what we need in this season. And I'm so grateful to have had this conversation with you. Janet, please tell our listener today where they can get a hold of your resources and what are the names of your books.
The first one is Grief, The Unwanted Journey, Reflections to Help Navigate Your Way Through Tragedy and Loss. And that is available on Amazon. The second one is Surviving the Holidays While Grieving, Practical Tools for Experiencing Joy When Facing Grief and Loss. Again, it's available on Amazon. And then the two Fly High books. One is, as I said, for the faith-based, and one is for the general market. And then they can get a hold of me at my email, joyfilledjan1@gmail.com, or on Facebook, joyfilledjan.author, or my web is janetkjohnson.com. And with Amazon, it's important to put the Janet K. Johnson because there's so many Janet Johnsons.
We want them to find you. We want them to find you. Yes. Thank you so much for writing on this. It's such a need, and I love that we got to talk about grieving and children in the holidays. I think that's especially needed, and for parents who are facing this season, with their kids, what do I do? How do I help them? And even for, family friends to come alongside and be like, I went to Hobby Lobby and I bought the crafts and, I'm going to help facilitate this because you were too tired to run the errand, but you want to participate in the activity with the kids, So there is just such a wealth of resources here. And I'm so glad that you've taken the time and allowed your heart to form into these wonderful books. Thank you, Janet.
Thank you so much for having me. And I just hope that the listeners today are blessed and understand that they are never alone and that there are resources out there for them.
It's so good. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me on part 2 of my interview with Janet Johnson, talking about surviving the holidays and our grief. Please go check out her resources, follow her on Facebook and social media, and share this episode with someone who needs this information this holiday season. Everyone, thank you so much. This has been the Hopecast with Rachael Flick.
You've been listening to the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. To find out more, go to rachaelflick.com. While you are there, you can book Rachael for your next speaking engagement. Her inspiring message will be sure to engage and touch the heart of your audience at your next conference, church event, or business function. Go to rachaelflick.com to book her today. While you're online, you can discover more information about all of the platforms that this podcast is on. If you listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, we would appreciate it if you would subscribe and leave us a review. To follow Rachael on social media, simply click on the social media icons at the top of the page and you will be directed to those sites. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time for another edition of the Hopecast with Rachael Flick.